What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So PBS came out with a documentary on the hunger strikes in Pelican Bay. And a lot of you guys have sent me the link, have DM'd it to me, have asked me if I've seen it. And so this morning I did watch some of it. I watched about a half hour of it. And I have to tell you, it took me back. It put me right back in there, right? So many memories. It was such a miserable place. You know, people that have never been there like to talk about it as if they know. Those of us who have been there, there's like a different understanding of each other. When you know that you know, hey, this Vato did a few years. This guy did a few years up there too. Eh? He did some years in the back with us. All right. He made it through. You know, it's different. Pelican Bay is or was different than any other place to do time in the California Department of Corrections. You know, these guys, hopefully you guys watch the documentary. I would like to react to it, but I know they won't let me. But they each give a description of how it was, how it made them feel. You know, one of the first guys says that one of the first things you notice when you enter Pelican Bay SHU was how quiet it was. It's quieter than any place you could imagine having to do time. I'm telling you, the first time I went to the SHU, I went to C4. And the pod that I was in, you could hear the electricity in the wires. In the pod, there was this metal pole going across the wall. And whatever wires were in there, you could hear the damn electricity. And I remember telling my cellie, homie, if you're validated and have to do time in this pod and listen to that, it'll drive you crazy. And yet there were guys in there that were validated doing indeterminate SHUs, meaning they were never going to get out of the SHU. Dudes from different factions, legends in there, same pod with me and all over. And I remember having a conversation with an older dude from Pomona 12th Street. And I asked him, I said, hey, Holmes, you know, on death row, them vatos got max draw and canteen, meaning they can go the full draw, right? They had phone calls just about every day. You know, they had a lot of stuff that you didn't get in the SHU. And I said, a validation when you're a lifer, an indeterminate SHU when you're a lifer is basically the death penalty. Why don't you vatos file some stuff in the courts to get the same privileges that death row did? And the older homie was offended by what I said. He said, why don't you do that, eh? I said, I'm not validated. He said, then what are you worried about it for? To him, the act of taking the CDC to court was a cowardly move, because to him, if he didn't like something the cops were doing, he was just going to try to stab one or spear one or dart one. Because that's what the belief is or was in there. You don't do none of that stuff, man. I'm gonna kill one of these dudes. That was the conversation. We're gonna make one of these motherfuckers bleed. That was the mentality, right? And so I was in and out of the SHU several times there. You know, being an idiot, making poor decisions. The right decisions for that world, though, right? I apologize. I'm a little, my allergies are bad today. But I remember, I believe it was 2000. I believe it was in 2000 when we had the very first hunger strike. The guy that organized it, he was a well-known legal beagle, a jailhouse lawyer, excellent at what he did, right? He did a lot of legal work for a lot of very, very powerful men behind those walls and inside Pelican Bay SHU for years. And he orchestrated the first hunger strike. And it was a great idea. Unfortunately for him, it led to him being put in bad standings. Because who is this guy? Who is this guy who is not a legend? Who is this guy to convince legends to starve themselves? Who gave him that power? Who gave him that authority? Again. See, then 2000, when that happened, if they would have stuck to it then, a lot of people would have gotten out then. Maybe by 2003 or 4, everybody would have been out. But people's minds weren't ready. And so it was messed up too, because while there was a hunger strike, it was said, hey, on this date, we're going to do a hunger strike. To get it from the building he was in all the way across the SHU, it took a little while. At the time, I was in C10, right? So you have 10 buildings in D facility SHU, and then you have 12 actually that are going to participate. You have 11 on C facility, and I was in 10. And so it had to go all through D facility, and then, hey, Holmes, if you run into so-and-so, let them know, homie, on this date. So it was said we're going to go 5 days. At 5 days, we'll decide if we're going to go another 15 or another 10, whatever it was. But I remember the number 15 was involved. So the guys that initially orchestrated this, as they were waiting for it to pass on to all the other cells, all the other pods, and what on that specific date to go down, since they were the ones that came up with the idea, or he was the one and got people to agree in his building, they were saving the apples every day. They were saving bread, and they were saving cakes. C10 and C11 found out about this hunger strike the day before the date. And everybody agreed, because the legends there for the different groups said, hey, this is what's happening. And everybody fell in line, as they are supposed to, right? And we actually did pretty much starve for those 5 days. And because of the way it was done, there were people protesting in front of the prison. There were radio stations that were broadcasting what was happening. They were trying to bring attention. Unfortunately, somebody decided to let them know it's going to be a 5-day hunger strike, and it may go another 10 or 15, whatever it was. So the cops came in the day of the hunger strike. I remember them pushing the food trays, the food carts in. Boom. And they were like, hey, so you guys ain't eating for the next 5 days, huh? And they laughed. And so it was kind of made a mockery of, right? Man, how the fuck did they know about this? How the fuck did they know it's 5 days? And I remember this was my first time getting an understanding of a group called the New Flowers. There was an individual that was in our pod that was a New Flower. And they run their own program. I don't know what they are. To this day, I don't know if they're SNY. I don't know. They're supposedly on a main line and they're on SNY. I don't know their thing. That's none of my business. But I know this individual, while everyone else was hungry, they would pop his door so that we had to see him walk the pot, go to the front of the pot and get a tray and walk back, and he was just happy. And I remember everybody wanted to kill him. Everybody wanted to spear him and dart him. How dare this dude? Like, whatever you're a part of, motherfucker, you're right here with us in the shoe. This thing was for everybody. It accomplished nothing because it was over in 5 days. The authorities knew what it was. But the mentality is what I'm talking about. Like I said, when it was over, the individual, the jailhouse lawyer that orchestrated it, good dude, man. Very good dude, smart dude. He had offended people. The audacity of that man to want to make things better for everyone. He was not bigger than the legends. And so he was brutally stabbed in the shoe. You know, they had this guy over here talking about how safe the shoe is. No damn idea what he's talking about. But the jailhouse lawyer was brutally, viciously stabbed and damn near bled to death. What I remember is when he came out of the cell, when they cuffed him up, they sat him down. The cops did. And they were waiting for medical to arrive. And he was smart enough to tell them, I need to walk now. And they told him, you're leaking bad. And he said, if I don't walk to medical, I'm going to bleed out waiting for medical. And he walked there. I believe he collapsed in medical. And had he waited for medical, he would have died in the pot. And he was smart enough to know that he had been involved in enough litigation against the CDC that they were trying to make him bleed out. That individual has been released from prison. He had a life sentence and was released from prison. I don't know where he is. I'm sure he's doing advocacy work somewhere, though. I remember after the riot in 2000, I remember they were giving the legends an opportunity to walk around the shoe. And there was talk that they were going to allow them out. And there was one faction that said, Chadle, we're not doing that. And again, I'm speaking to the evolution of the mindset of these convicts who had to learn how to use nonviolent ways to get things done. See, when you're in there and you want to make a change, you want to get something done, you want to fix the problem that you feel is a problem as a convict, but you fix that problem through violence, you're proving that you belong in the shoe. You know, prison nowadays is very different. Back then, you know, and if you watch the documentary, you're going to hear one of the gang cops. He erroneously says that you can get a shoe for 6, 9, or nobody got transferred to Pelican Bay for 6 months shoe. You would stay and do that in Ad Seg. But he talked about the 3 points of validation. It only took 3 points, but they usually used 5, a minimum of 5, because if they use 3 and you can get the courts, you can get it into the courts and get the courts to strike one, then you go back to the main line and they got to start all over. And so they usually used at least 5 points to validate you. And then you're stuck in the shoe forever, right? And I remember being in Ad Seg and, you know, when people would get snatched up and hit with their validation packet, it was kind of a badge of honor. It was the state of California recognizing you as one of the most dangerous criminals in the state. One of the most dangerous criminals that operates in the criminal world in California. So it's kind of a badge of honor. However, I remember seeing dudes that, because of their stupid mouths, they were going to get validated. And they were going to get hit for that. I remember the thinking, at least for the Southerners, the Southern raza, if you got validated before you had 10 years of incarceration, hadn't even been to the SHU or anything, if you got validated before 10 years of incarceration, you were looked at as a lame. How unsophisticated are you that you let them catch you and you're a nobody? There were dudes that would get validated for stupid stuff. Maybe they were middlemaning. They were just delivering mail for somebody. And they would be looked at as suckers. Nowadays, people get validated and just left on the yard, left in their cells. But I truly believe the CDC is going to try to figure out another way to slam everybody down again. There's a lot of violence going on in the CDC. But it's in-house. I think 99.9% of it is in-house. You don't hear about the riots anymore. So I think that is really, really messing up the CDC. They need racial warfare, racial hatred, and you don't hear that anymore. You only hear it by these YouTubers. These fake-ass YouTubers that weren't involved in that stuff, that want to stoke fires that don't even exist anymore, that want to talk about the warfare that went on in Southern California in the 90s and act like it's still happening now. Meanwhile, the heads of all the crime in California are coexisting on little-ass prison yards. And people out here want to talk about stuff like they know. I'm going to finish watching that documentary, and I hope you guys watch it as well. I will say that, like I said, it brought back a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings. Pelican Bay was a horrible experiment. I remember there were years, and I'm surprised none of the guys, at least as far as I watched so far, I'm surprised none of them mentioned the fact that they were trying to rob us of all of our senses and drive us insane in there. After all the murders that happened in there, it was 96, 97, there was a lot of murders. I believe there was 12 or 13 murders that happened in the SHU in 96, 97. And so then they started making it, if you were validated, if you were doing an indeterminate SHU, you couldn't have a cellie. But then there was a thing within there where, if you had a cellie prior and he's housed there and he's got an indeterminate, then you can possibly resell it with him. But you weren't going to be allowed to have a new cellie. That was taking away the sense of feel, to at least be able to shake the homie's hand in the morning. Hey, buenos dias, eh? It was so quiet in there. So they were taking away the sense of sound. They were boiling all of our food, taking away all the flavor. And they wouldn't give you the salt and pepper packs, the sense of taste. There was a lot of stuff going on back then. And it was to break people. I'm glad it's shut down. I'm glad Pelican Bay SHU is shut down. There still needs to be, like every society, there still needs to be a place where people have to go when they break the rules. The convicts will police themselves. The cops can't do it. They can only put you in a cell, wherever that cell. I remember when they used to try to threaten me with validation. Because, somebody got whacked on the yard, and then they would approach me on the yard. Hey, keep this shit up. You're going to get validated, this and that. And I would tell them, what are you doing? What are you going to do to me? Move me from the cell here to a cell there? You think that scares me? And that was an unfortunate mindset of everybody in there. I say a lot in my videos, man, that the majority of guys in there, doesn't matter if they have to go to yard today and kill somebody on the yard. They would rather be in our shoes out here and not have to do those things and not have to be involved in those decisions or make those decisions on their own. They would rather have the opportunity to sit out here and worry about the price of eggs, since that's on everybody's minds right now. Imagine that. Imagine that your biggest concern out here is the price of eggs, whereas if you were in there, are you going to have to kill somebody today? Did you get into something with somebody where this individual may want to kill you or put a hit on you? I think I'm okay with the price of fucking eggs. I really am. Because I know it'll go back down. I know that whatever we deal with out here is so small compared to in there. Hey, those guys made a lot of bad decisions and they're in there because of them. But a lot of them went in there when they were kids. They're not the same person now as they were then. And some of them just can't bring themselves to look in within themselves and figure out who the problem really is. It's easier for us because I did it for years in there, man. For years and years and years. It was the DA's fault. It was the cop's fault. It was the DA's fault. It was the judge's fault. It was the jury's fault. It was the lawmaker's fault. It was everybody's fault. It wasn't my fault for breaking any fucking law. It was their fault for enforcing the law I choose to break. And there are a lot of people that are still stuck in that mentality. And that's why they're there. Things have shifted. Some thinking has somewhat shifted in there. They now know how to use nonviolent tactics to get things done, and I applaud that. I really do. People want to clown the California model, and I say give it time. Give it time because, as I was told by an OG in 1995, there's a place for everybody in the California Department of Corrections. The people that want to program and better themselves and find peace and happiness within their heart and soul, even incarcerated, they're going to be okay in the California model. The guys that see that as weakness, they'll make a place for them. They'll make a yard for them. And they'll kill each other off. It's a cold world in there. I haven't forgot, and I never will. That's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.